Everybody. So in these two videos I have coming up in this, these two examples I have coming up in this video, we're going to apply multiple transformations. So in this first example, we're going to use that same graph that we did at the end of the previous video, which I redrew here for you. So if you need to pause the video, take a moment, redraw that graph. That's going to be our starting graph again. And then on the left here, I just pulled out those points just so I have it in a nice table format. And you're going to see that on the handout, I left some room to work, but I have 4 different grids all together because I'm going to do our transformations piece by piece. It helps to take your time with them and not try to rush. So that's going to be my plan here. Now I'm noticing a few things. I see a minus sign, -1. I see a -1/2. And I see a +3. I actually have 4 different transformations here because technically the negative and the 1/2 are 2 different things, but there's a lot going on. So if you remember the page before, here's the order that you're going to go in. We're going to do our horizontal shifting first. So we start inside those parentheses. So here I see this is a horizontal shift. Remember, shifts are always plus or minus. So if I see a subtraction sign, that's going to be a kind of shift. And because it's inside, it's always horizontal. And it works backwards to what you think. So a -1 is actually going to be a shift right at 1 unit. So I'm going to take all these points, I'm going to shift them over right 1 unit. And I'm going to write it here on a new grid just so we can clearly see it. But you may need to do it on top of your old graph first. So I'm just going to do it lightly in yellow here. So I'm going to take this point here, I'm going to shift it over 1. This point is going to get shifted over 1, 1, 1, and 1. So my new graph really looks like this. So I'm going to make a new table here just so I can kind of keep track of where I'm going. So this is my first change. So we're going this way. So let's see, this would be, if it was -4 here, now it's going to be -3. So this point is -3, 0. And then this point shifted over 1. So it went from -2 to -1. Here my 0, 0 became 1, 0. Here my 2, -2 became 3, -2. And then my 4, 0 became 5, 0. Now, normally when I just do shifts, I don't usually make a new table because usually you can just kind of do it right on the graph. It's pretty quick and easy to do if you're writing it out physically. But because I have so many other things going on here, particularly this multiplier out front, I am going to keep track of my table because I'm going to need it for my multiplier. I don't really need it so much for my shifts, but I do need it for that multiplier to help me to figure out how to stretch or compress. So I'm going to keep track of my table along the way. All right, so this part we did in pink. All right, why don't we do blue next? So the next thing that you should be doing is you're stretching and shrinking, and then you're reflecting. Now, I tend to also do these in one step, particularly if it's next to each other. So see here how you have that -1/2. So this is actually both a reflection because of the negative, and then also it's going to be a compression because the 1/2 is going to compress it down. So you have both changes there, but you can do it at the same time because they're both outside changes. And if they're both outside changes, we multiply the y values in both of those cases. So if you go back to your notes, let me see if I can find it just quickly for you. So for instance, if you look at reflections, when we had an outside change, we multiplied the y's by -1. And then when we looked at stretching and shrinking, when we had an outside change, we multiplied the y's by that value as well. So because we're doing the same thing, both of those are getting multiplied with the y values. I'm just going to do it in one step. and keep it together. But you will see both a compression and a flip at the same time. Okay. So I'm going to go this way. We'll go down this way. I want to do blue here. So I'm going to redo my table. Okay. Now my x's are going to stay the same. But my y values are going to get multiplied by -1/2. So these are all going to get multiplied by -1/2. So you have 0 times -1/2, which is just 0. You have 4 times -1/2, which is -2. Again, you have 0 times -1/2, which is 0. -2 times -1/2 is going to be +1. And then 5 times -1/2 is going to, oh, sorry, not 5, wrong column. 0 again times -1/2 is going to be 0. Okay. So I have all my y values. 3 of them were 0, so those are going to stay because it's not going to change if you multiply. And then these two we multiplied by -1/2. So this became -2, and this one became +1. So now let's draw the graph. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, -1, -2, 1, 0. Then I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 1, and 5, 0. I'm going to use the same general shapes. Remember, it's kind of curvy on the left and straight on the right. So notice here, we went and we flipped, right? Instead of it being up and then down, it's down and then up. That was caused by the negative on the outside that caused that vertical up and down flipping. And then that 1/2 is what caused the graph to kind of get compressed here. So we compressed it. Let's see, what color haven't we used? Let's do purple. All right, and the last one here, if I go back up, the last thing we always do are vertical shifts. And I do have one. So this right here, that's a vertical shift. And it's a +3, so it's going to go up 3 units. Your vertical shifts work normal. Now, I have an extra grid here if you want to use that, or if you want to just do it right on the grid, you can. So we're going to go up 3 units. So each of these points are going to go up 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the same general shape. And that's actually going to be my final graph. So if you want to graph that here, we can. So let's see, we're at -1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then we're at -1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 3. Okay. And this is our final graph. That y equals -1/2 f of x - 1 plus 3. So these do take some time. They're not easy. They do take some practice. So you need to just go one little step at a time. If you have more than one transformation, follow it in this order. So you do your horizontal shifting first, then you can do any stretching or shrinking, reflecting, and then shifting. If your stretching, shrinking, and reflecting is all together, so it's all the same number, like we had -1/2, then you can do it all together. If it's different though, let's say like one negative is inside and then the number is outside, then you'll have to do those separately. So you just want to be careful there. But if it's one number because they're right next to each other, then you can do it together like we did with that -1/2. All right, let's try one more. So here we're going to go back and use a standard parent function. So this is our x² function. It's going to be that U shape. And we've seen it before. And our values were -2, 4, -1, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, and 2, 4. So our starting graph looks like this. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and just go in order. So remember, you start inside parentheses first. So you're always going to start with your horizontal shifts if you have them. So here, right, we have an inside change. This is a horizontal shift, and it's a shift because it's a plus or minus. So all your shifts are plus or minuses. So I'm going to end up going left here 3 units. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. And again, I gave extra space so you can have extra grids, but if you want to do it all in one grid, you can do that and then just rewrite your final answer in the end. So here I like to just do it right on the graph. So I'm going to go left 3 units. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So my graph is going to end up being like over here, like that. I'm going to redraw it here just to see it a little bit clearer in pink, but that's what I'm doing. And if you want to keep track of your table, which I do recommend, just to help with the multiplying factors and reflections and things, I'm going to rewrite it. So my 0, 0 went to -3, 0. My -1, 1 went to -4, 1. And then my -2, 4 went to -5, 4. And then on the other side, my 1, 1 went to what? -2. Yeah, where am I? -2, 1. And then my 2, 4 went to -1, 4. Okay, so I'm just matching up my points, creating my new table here. Okay, so that's your horizontal shift. After your horizontal shift, you're going to look for any sort of stretching. I don't have anything on the inside. The inside part's done. So I'm going to go to the outside piece. I see I have a multiplier by 2 here. And that 2 is on the outside. Okay. So this is going to end up being a stretch here. So it's going to pull the graph. And what we're going to do is multiply our y's by 2. And that's because it's an outside change. So outside changes, we multiply those y's. So my x values are going to stay the same. I'm just going to rewrite them. And then for my y values, I'm going to multiply those by 2. So I'm going to get 4 times 2, which is 8. 1 times 2, which is 2. 0 times 2, which is 0. And then again, 1 times 2 is 2, and 4 times 2 is 8. I don't have a reflection here. It's just that multiplier. So let's go ahead and graph these. Let's say I have -5, 8. And I have -4, 2. 2. -3, 0. -2, 2. And then -1, 8. And I'm going to try to keep that same general shape there. But you can see from here to here that the graph looks a bit narrower. It was pulled this way. And then our last piece here, always save the vertical shifts for last. So any plus or minus at the end of the problem is going to be the last step. And here I have a vertical shift, right? It's an outside change. So it's outside. So I'm going to go down 1 unit. So everything's just going to go down 1. And again, shifts I tend to just do right on the graph, but if you want to rewrite it, you can. So I'm going to take all those points and just go down 1 unit. It's not going to make too much of a change here, but it's going to see a little shift down, but the same shape. So my final graph then just copying it over here. So 7 would be this one right here. So we can see we have that shift left compared to the original. We have that shift down compared to the original, and we also have that stretching. So these definitely take some practice. I want you to just take them one little step at a time. That's how I do it. So you're just going to go one piece at a time. And again, if you just follow, where are my pages now? The steps here go in this order. Do your vertical shifting first, do any sort of stretching and shrinking next, then you're reflecting, and then that vertical shift at the end. That's how you can complete them in multiple steps. So you're basically just doing sort of order of operations, working that inside to outside idea. Remember that adding and subtracting are always shifts. So all you're doing is moving the graph up or down or left to right. Your negatives are your reflections. So if you have a negative multiplier, you're going to flip it either up and down or left to right. And then if you actually have a number being multiplied or divided, then you're actually going to have to do some work. Then you're either stretching or compressing one way or the other. Also remember that any outside changes affect the graph vertically. So you're affecting the Y values in an up and down direction. And any changes inside, so inside parentheses, roots, radicals, whatever you have, is going to reflect things horizontally, so left to right. So you're going to, move them left to right or shift left to right or pull them, whatever you're doing, but it'll be a left to right change.